In this video, I'll be talking about how to make video sales letter ads for branded dropshipping brands, e-commerce brands, or consumer brands, and how it saved my business from fading into obscurity. It was this exact tweak that I made that turned me from a few sales a day to 350K within 30 days. And this is in September. In this strategy document, I'll cover why the first 5 to 30 seconds of your VSL make or break your advertising campaigns, how to hunt for a unique mechanism of the problem with AI's deep research. I will also link a unique mechanism research prompt that you can use for deep research with AI, how to design a unique mechanism that makes your product feel one of a kind, the principles behind high converting closes and why length don't matter at all, and the step-by-step structure for writing VSL ads that generate hundreds of thousands in sales using a process that I call copy swiping. So as you can see here, I'll explain how you can use this 9-step process to swipe and build your own winning VSL. Now let's dive into why most ads fail to scale. Most brands run short, flashy ads that get a few clicks but rarely get to connect deeply with the customers. And these ads might drive some sales, but it is mostly bottom of the funnel prospects, and they rarely do a good job of reducing CPAs and increasing your advertising efficiency. Now, the reason is because consumers don't just want a product, they want a solution to their pain. And VSLs are different because they combine storytelling and persuasion into a narrative that explains the problem, highlights the unique solution, and shows the transformation. It was this exact tweak that I made that turned me from a few sales a day to 350K within 30 days. Now, I've had the privilege of working with some heavy hitters in the space, and one of them is the legendary John Benson, who is the creator of the VSL that we know of today. And here's his quote. I may be a bit biased, but I think VSLs are the king of the marketing jungle. It's because they sell like cold water after a marathon. To further illustrate why VSLs are so powerful now is because it is the modern version of a long-form sales letter or infomercial, but adapted for modern traffic sources like Facebook for the mobile user. So instead of shouting, buy this product today, a VSL ad guides the consumer through the pain they're living with right now, the discovery that reveals the surprising truth about the problems, the solution your product provides, and the transformation they'll experience when they take that call to action. So from problem-solving products, whether it's back pain, anxiety, or messy kitchens, a narrative approach beats quick, shallow ads every time. And to further illustrate this, some of my favorite VSL-driven companies are brands like Dr. Marty Pets, and a huge part of his early success was running a lot of ads to his VSL page, talking about the nutrition protocol. Another brand that I really love is Dr. Gundry MD, which is a supplement brand, and he runs a lot of ads to his VSL pages to sell his supplement protocols. Even Hormozi's 100 million money models book launch was a VSL that sold about $100 million in info products. So I've paid for info products over the past few years and learning from some of the best in the space. If you're still watching this video now, you probably have heard of Stephen Georgi's RMBC method. And his RMBC framework is, in my opinion, the clearest way to synthesize the research and production process of a VSL. Essentially, it breaks down into research into the customer's pain, a mechanism that explains both the cause and the cure, a structured brief that maps the entire story, and the final copy that brings your VSL script to life. Now that we understand why most ads fail and why VSLs succeed, let's break down the psychology behind why VSLs work so well for problem-solving products. Now let's first understand asymmetries in VSLs, and that is in the hooks and leads. And they are asymmetric because in direct response copy, the hook and lead carry disproportionate weight. If you have a weak hook, your ad dies early, but if you have multiple winning hooks, that's where you get to see breakthrough return. If the hook fails, no one sees the rest of your message, so everything else beyond the first 5 to 30 seconds, it's almost irrelevant. If the lead is weak, viewers bounce before the mechanism or the offer is revealed. So every downstream metric, watch time, CTR, ROAS, depends on these first 30 seconds. That's why small improvements in the hooks will deliver asymmetric returns. A breakthrough hook or lead can mean 10x more people consuming your pitch, while failures are invisible because the ad never gets watched. So you want to get people beyond the 5 to 30 seconds of the video. And to quote Mr. Hormozy, the most important thing in the content is the first 5 seconds, because it sorts 80 to 90% of the traffic, and it's crazy we don't spend more time testing the hook. So when you're writing VSLs, focus most of your attention and energy on testing more hooks. So define the hook as the first 3 to 5 seconds that stops the scroll, pattern interrupts, signals relevance, and its only job is to earn the lead. And the lead is the first 20 to 30 seconds. It sets the stage for the problem, builds empathy, and teases the discovery. Its job is to earn the next 2 minutes where you can go deeper into the mechanisms. So think of the hook as the headline, the lead as the opening paragraph of a sales letter. Both work together to buy you permission to deliver your narrative. Now let's look at the types of hooks. This is not exhaustive, but these are some of my favorite hooks that I've used so far. The pain first hook is high in empathy and has immediate relevance because it speaks to your direct audience. Next, we have shock and curiosity hook. So use a surprising fact, statistic, or visual. Think of it as a contrarian information. So, for example, doctors say 80% of back pain treatments don't fix the real cause. So this creates an open loop that viewer wants to close. Next is the future pacing hook. Show the transformed life your product promises. So this is really about painting the dream results. And examples of this would be, imagine bending, stretching, and playing with your kids pain-free. So there's a positive emotional draw instead of pain-first kind of hooks. And number 4, authority/proof. So if you have a spokesperson, I think this is a great hook because you can lead with credibility to establish instant trust, and it works well in crowded markets where skepticism is high. Now let's look at the type of leads, right? This is where we're expanding the hook and we're making sure that the viewer is emotionally invested in the story. So with the problem story lead, which is extending the pain, you share a relatable mini story that mirrors the viewer's experience, testimonial stories, or transformational stories. So this builds empathy and rapport, and people buy into stories. People enjoy watching or reading stories. Next is credibility lead. So this introduces who you are as the founder or who you are as the brand spokesperson and why you're worth listening to. So this is especially important for expert-led brands. So if you look at a brand like Dr. Marty Pets, they use a lot of credibility lead because it's a pretty saturated space, the pet food industry. But when you lead with credibility, you can establish the authority early on, and consumers are more willing to listen to you because perhaps you have some unique insights that can share with them. Next is the missing piece lead, which is to transition into the unique mechanism of the problem. So the reason nothing has worked is because you've been treating the symptoms, not the cause. So it's almost alluding to something that is missing within your current regimen or current routine that is causing you to still suffer with this problem of pain. And number 4 is promise payoff lead. So this is where you lay out the big transformation you'll discover by watching this video. So you keep curiosity open while hinting at a solution. Now, a bird's eye view on the hook and lead testing strategy. So you want to produce 10 to 20 hook variations per VSL, each with its own lead angle. So you want to measure thumb stop 3-second views, watch time, and click-through rate. If you want to test it even faster without having to invest into actually editing the videos, what I've tried before is to run static ads, right? So you run static ads on the hooks only. So for example, if you have 10 hooks, you want to run these 10 hooks as static images and then observe which hooks has the highest click-through rate. And based on that information, you can then build your VSL on that. So once a hook plus a lead pair wins, you can spin off many variations of it. So you want to keep reskinning your winners until they are no longer winning. So this could be reworking the visuals, changing the phrasing, changing the captions, changing the audio. There are so many ways to go about reskinning it. So the key principle here again is that we see asymmetric returns in action. A mediocre VSL with a great hook will outperform a polished VSL with a bland one. So when you think about your ad testing process, you want to focus most of your attention on the hook and lead, because the more effort you put in there, the more breakthrough you can see in terms of your advertising efficiency. The next section is talking about the unique mechanisms, and you want to nail this down because a huge chunk of persuasion and belief building happens here. Here is why unique mechanisms matter. Most ads fail because they sound like everyone else. A unique mechanism gives your product a new frame of reference. It is a hidden insight that makes the viewer say, that explains why nothing else worked and why this might finally work for me. That is the mental shift or mental frame of reference that you want to build with your unique mechanism. They shift the buying decision away from price comparison towards belief in the mechanism. When consumers believe a product uniquely addresses the real cause of their problem, substitutes feel irrelevant. So this means you can raise prices or hold margin without losing demand. To take this example to the natural extreme, if you have studied economics, you will have known of this graph or the price elasticity. So with a generic product, you have a very price elastic demand, meaning to say when price changes, quantity demanded changes very fast. But when you have a unique mechanism product, i.e. a very unique one of one product, or if you can build so much belief in a product that people sees it as unique, even with the price increase, your quantity demanded stays the same. Or you can make the argument, of course, that if the price decrease, the quantity demanded would definitely increase. This is just understanding philosophically why unique mechanisms are so important. Now let's zoom in on the unique mechanism of the problem. This explains why the customer's pain still exists despite trying other solutions. It reframes their struggle around a hidden cost they have never considered. And it's also the reason why a product exists in the first place. So the purpose of the unique mechanism of the problem is to agitate the pain and make current solutions look obsolete, because you are going after older solutions that are outdated, old-fashioned, or ineffective. The effect here is that it creates frustration with the old way and curiosity about the new way. So for example, most posture devices fail because they only mask symptoms, where the real problem is weak stabilizer muscles that keep pulling your spine out of alignment. Another unique mechanism could be diet plans don't fail because of willpower. They fail because your body's leptin signal is broken and you never feel full. And this is like the huge part of why people use Ozempic, is they want to feel full. Most hearing aids amplify everything: noise, static, ambient hum, making speech just louder in a jumble. Your brain says to sort it out, so confusion, fatigue, and misunderstanding persist. So that is a unique mechanism of the problem when it comes to existing hearing aid solutions, right? You want to become the first person to explain why they've been stuck, and they'll continue to be stuck if they rely on old traditional methods. Now let's dive into the unique mechanism of the solution. Once you've reframed the problem, you reveal how your product addresses that hidden cost. This positions your product as the only logical fix. The purpose here is to prove your product is fundamentally different from existing solutions and not just another Me Too gadget. So the effect here is that it creates relief, hope, and urgency to act. So some examples to tackle the unique mechanisms of problems here. So the Posture Pro belt isn't just a brace, it's a memory knit fabric that retrains stabilizer muscles with every wear, fixing the root cause over time. So our formula doesn't just suppress appetite, it restores leptin sensitivity so your body naturally tells you when to stop eating, right? And this unique chip isolates speech frequencies and suppresses background noise in real time. So instead of making everything louder, it tunes into what matters, the human voice, and filters out the clutter. Now, strategic principles for crafting mechanisms. And I'm going to share with you some deep research prompts that you can use. Essentially, you want to make it simple and visual. The mechanism should be easy to explain in 1 to 2 sentences and ideally supported by a visual or a demonstration. Number 2, you want to tie it to science or authority. Even a light reference to research or quoting an expert can boost credibility. If you have an expert spokesperson, that would be even better. So authority helps transform mechanism into truth. However, don't get overly technical. So this is a mistake that I used to make, and this was what John Benson used to point out on my video sales letters, because I recognize that I'm a very right-brain decision maker. I like to buy things based on logic, and so I find that when I write copy, I can get a bit too technical, and this is where I use AI to dumb down the copy, right? Make it understandable, make it grade 5 level kind of reading. Now, number 3 is to contrast with the old way. So you want to clearly show how the old way treats symptoms while your mechanism fixes the root cause. And you want to embed it in the story. So you introduce the mechanism as part of a lead or narrative, so people retain stories better than standalone facts, right? So they want to remember your product for the story that you tell, and that becomes easier of a sell. The reason why mechanisms scale VSLs is because without a mechanism, your ad is just a pitch, right? So once they go past the hook and lead, if they don't find your mechanisms believable, it just sounds like a pitch. They're not going to buy the product and your conversions will suffer. So you want to look at the mechanisms as part of the belief shifting education piece. The VSL is the educational material that brings a customer from unaware to product aware. And mechanisms don't just sell once, they reframe how a customer thinks about their problem, essentially positioning our product as the only viable choice. Now, the last part is the close. This is where you turn belief into action. Right? The purpose of the close is the structured conclusion of the argument. So here's where you're converting the audience from passive observers to action takers and buyers, right? You want to give them every reason to buy today and also set the stage for your upsells or downsells. So you want to summarize the journey, explain the journey of getting to the solution, present the offer clearly, reduce risk with guarantees and safety nets, and number 4, drive urgency, right? The close is where belief becomes action. This is where they take out their credit card to make their purchase. So this is a VSL close script formula. This is a quick brief from a bird's eye view. You'll be able to use the deep research prompts that I'll attach in the link. So the first thing is you want to recap the pain and mechanism. So why most problem solutions fail? Because of the certain unique mechanism that they might not be aware of. But thanks to your unique mechanism of your solution, now you can finally get the desired outcome. Next, you want to introduce the offer clearly. So when you order today, you'll get this benefit, this bonus. And another learning point that I had from John Benson was that you want to make your bonus so compelling that customers are willing to pay for just the bonuses in itself. So when you reveal that the bonuses are free alongside the product purchase, it will tip them across the buying decision. Now, the next thing is the value anchor versus price. So you want to have a high anchor price and justify it. You don't want to just say it is a high price because it is. You want to justify it with explaining the reason why it is expensive. And then you introduce the actual price, which is what they can get the product for. Now, a risk reversal will be guarantees. And one of the phrases that I like to use is you don't have to decide today, right? You can try it for 180 days, you can try it for 6 months, and if you don't love the results, we'll give you all your money back, no questions asked. So this is a good guarantee. The next thing is the urgency and scarcity. So this special offer is only available today while supplies last. Once we sell out of this batch, it could be weeks before we restock. And this is a very real situation because sometimes you can actually run out of stock and you have to stop selling. The next thing is the explicit call to action. So you want to click the button below right now, choose your package, and start experiencing transformation for yourself. Okay, so this is where you give them very clear instructions. You can even show on screen how the buying journey looks like. And lastly, the future pacing, which is the optional final push, right? This is where you tell them 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 90 days from now, this is how you'll be living life. This is how you'll feel. This is what you'll be experiencing. Your future pacing all the results that they will experience, right? Now, a few strategic principles. Clarity beats cleverness. Just be plain, be direct, write your copy in a very simple way. Try to avoid jargon. Don't get too technical. Repetition is persuasion, so repeat the mechanism and benefits multiple times in different ways. So this is something that John Benson taught me as well. I think a lot of times we might think that, hey, if we mention it once, you don't want to mention it again, which is not true. People forget things very fast. The trick here is to actually rewrite it in a different manner or to communicate the benefit in a different way that would speak to the user in a different manner. The next thing is to future pace. Show them what life would be like. So when you're running or editing a VSL, you want to make sure that you include the dream scenarios so that they can visualize themselves in that situation. And lastly, stack the value. So you want to have bonuses, free shipping, guarantees. You want to pile it up to make a very irresistible offer. Now, the close is powerful because it is where everything you've built, pain, empathy, mechanism, and proof, comes together at the end. A weak close essentially wastes the entire journey. But if you have a strong close, it drives conversions by removing hesitation. So sometimes people ask me, what if the video ends up being really long? That's completely fine. Don't be afraid of the length. A great close can take up to 50 to 60% of your entire video. because that's where you handle objections, you reinforce belief, and you give fence sitters the final push to act. So think about the consumer journey. When you're watching the video and the product is revealed, the people that are sufficiently convinced, they will click on to the next page. But the rest need a bit more time. Maybe they need more reassurance, they need more clarity, they need to get certain objections out of the way. So you want to take that opportunity, if they're still watching the video, to handle those objections to get them over the fence. Now that we're done talking about the anatomy of a successful VSL, I'll be attaching this document in the description below. This is how you can use AI to come up with a deep research and a detailed report around your unique mechanisms of your product. So you want to answer some of these questions to the best of your ability and then copy and paste it into ChatGPT. I would recommend that you use the deep research prompt because you'll get a much more detailed report and understanding around your consumers' problems and then how you can position your unique mechanisms. The last thing I want to talk about is my approach towards copy swiping VSLs. Right? Good copywriters swipe, so you don't need to create from scratch. You want to build VSLs that have performed well, right? You don't want to start from scratch because there's a lot of risk in there. I'll break it down step by step on what you need to do. So the first thing you want to do is you want to input to AI all your information about your brand, your product, your unique mechanisms, which is where your deep research prompt comes in. You want to feed AI all this information and then drop this into your GPT as your writing workspace or your strategic source document. So you want to make sure that AI knows everything about your product before touching any swipe. You don't want AI to hallucinate or spit out gibberish. So you want to make sure that it knows what your product is and it's not guessing. Step 2, you want to hunt for a high-performing VSL. How you find that is you go look at ClickBank, top offers. You can look at Facebook ad library or YouTube ads, native ads. You can use tools like BitTal where they show you ads that are spending a lot of money and look at their VSLs. The criteria here is that you want to look for offers closest in problem/solution type to yours. So what I found that if, for example, if you're tackling back pain, you want to perhaps look for another offer that's performing well in the pain relief niche. So then you can glean from reading other similar offers. You can read about how they position the pain, how they position the unique mechanisms, and those are things that you can essentially model after. Step 3 is to collect the transcript. So you watch the VSL and pull the transcript. What I do is I use the script to record the video as I watch it. So once the script has transcribed the video, I'll clean the transcript up and store it alongside the video link for reference. The next step is to label the flow. So what I can do is I'll label the sections of the transcript. So I can throw it into ChatGPT and tell them to label the sections. Most VSLs would have these different sections. Maybe they appear in a different sequence, but they usually have this. So you want to essentially get AI to give you a map around their persuasion arc. Step 5 is to use AI to rewrite block by block. So you want to feed AI one section at a time with the swipe transcript block and to your strategic document context. So for example, an instruction could be rewrite this block, for example, the lead, using the same persuasion structure but contextualized for my product offer, keep the flow and sequence. However, replace stories, data claims with my details. They'll be able to pull data from your strategic document and then build your VSL based on that. And then you repeat for every section block. Step 6 is to thread it together. So assemble all rewritten blocks in order, read for consistency of tone and flow, change out content that's not accurate, or simplify concepts. So what I personally do is I get my expert to proofread, validate, and simplify the explanations because I want to make sure that I'm not writing gibberish, right? Or AI is not writing gibberish. So it's very important that you get someone to proofread it. Then you add the connective tissue. This is where you have transitions between sections so that when it's presented, it is a bit more seamless. Now you want to optimize the hooks and leads. We previously talked about this. This is where you generate 10 to 20 variations of the hook or lead, test them as short form ads, intros, and keep the winning hook/lead attached to the full VSL body. And step number 8 is the proof and compliance check. You want to verify claims, especially scientific or medical. Make sure mechanism framing is compliant. So you don't want to say things like cure cancer, things like that. That will get you in a lot of trouble. You want to make sure you have substantiated claims and you want to edit for clarity over cleverness. And then last thing is you want to test it. Launch small test budgets for different hooks and leads scale the winning versions, and rinse and repeat the process to test net new concepts, ideas, or hooks. Once you've figured out a winning VSL that becomes your control, you can now focus upstream, the ads, the static ads, what's the traffic sources, the different traffic channels, and then prioritize accordingly. Because when you have a good VSL, you can pretty much run it for a very long time to come.